Hello, you're watching World Talks on TVP World. My name is Sascha Fahrbach. Japan's first female prime minister, Sanae Takaichi, has consolidated her leadership with a decisive landslide victory, securing broad national support. The markets reacted swiftly, with Japanese stocks rallying on expectations of political stability and policy clarity. We now look at what all this means and this new mandate could mean for key agendas, from taxation and defense to constitutional reform. And to analyze the latest, we're joined by Guibourg Delamotte, professor of political science and head of the Japanese Studies Department at the French Institute of Oriental Studies. Good to have you with us here.
Hello, thanks very much.
So this is quite a historic moment. I mean, she's the first female prime minister and also one of the first to secure such a majority. If we're looking back to October, I believe it was 2025, her party in a very different position. So what is behind this success?
Well, she has generated considerable popularity. Her person, her resilience, she comes across as being determined, honest, resilient, forthright. And also very new in the Japanese context. The party has been, of course, the political party, so the Liberal Democrats, has been really male-dominated, and so she's made it in that unusual, in that traditional environment, let's say, and so she's her personality very much is appreciated by voters. Also, on the personal front, there are elements that really play in her favor as well. So her personality has really been attracting attention, and so the male voters are traditionally, male votes are more conservative, and younger people tend to be more conservative, and so she's gathered a lot of support with the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds in particular. It's a staggering support rates of about 80%. So this election and the result, the exceptional result, I mean, there's never been a majority that strong, and it's quite remarkable in even probably, in political history in general, is really a little bit like a referendum in favor of the policies she proposes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting point there, and to note as well, this historic time, really, since, as you mentioned, the lower house is 2/3, no one has achieved this since pretty much 1947. So you're saying it's a referendum. This gives her a powerful mandate. And which type of policy areas do you think she's now going to really focus on in this term?
Well, she's clearly said that she wanted to consolidate growth. There are elements indicating that growth is picking up, is starting, wage increases, investment increase. There are nevertheless people that are struggling with the weakness of the yen, which has meant high prices. So that's one aspect where she's made strong commitments. She wants to invest in innovation quite massively, and that's where she hopes to generate growth, and innovation in all sorts of fields which have both civilian and military implications, and therefore are significant in all sorts of respects. So that's one aspect, the economy, and also as far as security goes, she's indicated that she wanted to revise 3 important documents that were due to expire and be revised nevertheless next year, but so a bit ahead. And she wants to increase defense budgets, and is in favor of an upgrade in Japan's defense equipment, and that's been planned already for a couple of years, but she wants to strengthen that. As far as constitutional revision goes, she has it would seem that she's reminded people that the constitutional revision was a long-standing ambition of the Liberal Democrats, and therefore she has a possibility of considering it seriously. But there's also the upper house to account for, and of course in the upper house the majority is not at all a two-thirds majority. In fact, they're short of an absolute majority altogether. So So if any kind of constitutional reform is to take place, it'll have to be something consensual and minimal, really. And majority of the people, in any case, is attached to the pacifism. So it would have to be maybe something that allows the self-defense forces that they feel they're not in a to feel that they're not in a gray zone anymore, that they're out of the ambiguity that the post-war history has placed them in, whereby Japan could not rearm with a constitution that was explicitly pacifist, and yet had to defend itself, and then sign a security treaty that allowed for Japan to be protected, but also plan for, at some stage, some kind of greater autonomy on its part. So in that conflicting normative environment, Japan decided that self-defense was allowed in with military means, and then therefore created self-defense forces. But nevertheless, there's some ambiguity because, of course, the Constitution still explicitly bans any war potential. So just making it explicit in Article 9, perhaps, that a self-defense force is allowed for self-defense purposes.
On the defense, let me jump in there briefly, because that's an interesting topic. Defense as well. I mean, this is clearly something that Japan overall has shifted to more. That also has a connection, not just because of awareness towards China, but also closer connection now to Europe. What kind of, let's say, relationship can we now expect now that she has a clearer mandate, foreign policy vis-a-vis the European Union, and also the question of Ukraine?
Well, continuity really is what we can expect, and continuity, but stability also. And it means she's not going to be subject to the kind of she'll be subject to direct scrutiny and parliamentary scrutiny, obviously, but she'll be in a strong position to defend her ideas because she's been given such a clear mandate. So she's been in that situation, in November, where the opposition was asking her a question. She tried to reply as clearly as she could, and that led to a backlash with China. So hopefully the fact that the mandate's been renewed will allow the opposition to play a more constructive role. With respect to the Europeans, Japan is a very, very important partner in the Indo-Pacific and for world security in general. And it has exercised a discreet leadership in the, it's sort of an expression I used in the book. It's for the past 20 years. So Japan came up with this idea of a free and open Indo-Pacific. It also took the lead on the negotiation for this massive free trade agreement that's called the CPTPP, after the US said they wouldn't remain in it. So, and the fact that Japan's been able to play such a leadership role in a very, sort of a constructive and discreet way, so not in a Trumpian kind of way, has been very helpful to Europeans. Europeans need that cooperation with Japan. Of course, they sometimes struggle to pull their act together. But this is a middle power moment now between China and the US. We're confronted to the same issues, whereby we need to be more autonomous from both China and less reliant on the United States for our security. So China economically and the US for security purposes. And that means that middle powers need to get together. And Japan's very much been in the past 20 years one of the artisans, one of the builders of such middle power links. But it always went via the US. Lots of bilateral corporations have been created, trilateral ones as well, but the US always seemed a key. Now I think we've reached that time where Europe and Japan must cooperate more. They've got an EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement, and a strategic partnership together, which they've signed a few years ago, and that strategic partnership agreement can really be now mobilized in order to establish cooperations with other countries as well, like Australia, India, the Philippines, for economic security purposes, so ensuring the stability of supply chains, the safety of supply chains, and also access to critical minerals, and for to ensure deterrence through joint exercises, which have to be as smooth as we can. Military cooperation needs to be as smooth as possible, so that we show we're completely interoperable. So a lot of that happened bilaterally or with the US. Now it needs to happen in small groups, more multilaterals around middle powers. And the US joins if they want, if it wants to, if it's benevolent, and we certainly should hope it will be. But middle powers need to get together as well and show that they're partakers and that they're engaging, that they're not passive in the world.
Right, okay, so that gives her definitely a strong mandate in many directions on this historic win in Japan. Thank you so much. We'll close it there. Guibourg Delamotte, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay right here on TVP World for news and commentary. Goodbye.